How's it going, everyone? This is Mitchell Mander, and welcome to another review of the Pokemon 2019 series. Today, we are going to be covering Episode 3, which involves Ash and Go on their first research assignment together, as they investigate what's going on in Vermilion City, which turns out to be Bulbasaur, Ivysaur, and Venusaur are going to a certain area. And also, Team Rocket makes their first appearance in this series. So I thought this episode was only decent at best. It's kind of like a middle-of-the-road episode. Not a bad episode by any means, but still not a good or great episode at the same time. So I do like how this episode started out. It has kind of a slice-of-life feel, kind of reminiscent to Sun and Moon, in which Ash and Go are sleeping in bed. Their alarms go off and they don't wake up. That's when Mr. Mime walks in with an invisible vacuum cleaner and wakes the boys up. And then we have the boys eating breakfast in the lab, and I do like this whole scene. It's very reminiscent of Sun and Moon, kind of like how Ash was in Kukui's house, making food for the Pokemon and for himself. Very reminiscent of that. We do get to see what our first research assignment is for the boys, and it's to investigate what's going on in Vermilion City, because one of the research assistants comes back. He was stuck in traffic, he was heading back late. And the reason why he was late was because of a traffic incident with Ivysaur. And the professor sends the two boys on a research assignment to figure out what's going on. So it's pretty clear to me that the main purpose of this episode isn't actually so much on the research assignment, as that kind of feels secondary. The main thing here is Ash and Go's relationship and establishing it, as they are off to a pretty rocky start and they're not really getting along. They kind of were bickering a little bit in the last episode, but they are bickering big time in this episode. You can just see the differences between the two. So when these two head down to the city, they run into Officer Jenny, which, by the way, I love her design in this series. She points to the Ivysaur that are walking down the street and getting into traffic. And that's when Go pulls out his Rotom phone, which, by the way, I forgot to mention, both Ash and Go have Rotom phones now. And I'm not sure how I feel about the Rotom phone at the moment, but I do like the fact that when it's taken out, when Go's reading off the Ivysaur, it's kind of like a Pokedex. It shows its type on the phone. It shows it's a grass and poison type. I thought that was pretty neat. But anywho, they end up running into a stray Ivysaur that's stuck in an alley and it can't get up to the top of the alleyway. And Ash wants to help the Ivysaur, but Go doesn't want to help. He's basically there for the research assignment and doesn't want to, touch the Pokemon. And that leads to Ash and Go having a very petty fight, by the way. And they get into a really silly fight, and they kind of want to do things on their own. And it's interesting as we find out why the Ivysaur are walking through town. We find out that the Ivysaur are going to a specific spot where they bask in the sun and evolve. And the spot happens to be a reference to the original games. It's actually a gym that was built here. And it's a reference to the fact that the Machop in Vermilion City in the original games is building or doing construction work. Turns out that construction work was to build this new gym. So the Ivysaur and Venusaur, Bulbasaur, head up to this gym and go to the very top. And the entire time that they're climbing up, Ash and Go are fighting, but they're kind of, starting to realize that they need each other's help if they're going to want to get to the top of this gym. So they kind of put their differences aside and they help each other get to the top. And as Ash and Go get to the top, they actually begin to bask in the sun with the Ivysaur. And just as the Ivysaur are about to evolve into Venusaur, that's when Team Rocket jumps in and tries to swoop in and steal all the Ivysaur, Bulbasaur, and maybe some Venusaur that may have been in there. But let me just get on to Team Rocket now. So Team Rocket, towards the beginning of the episode, were sent off on their mission, and Giovanni talks about having a secret weapon and kind of just establishing themselves in this series. And I'm curious to see what this series does with Giovanni in the long run. Hopefully it's better than what Alola did, which was not really that much. He was there here and there, just kind of in the background, but he just didn't do enough in Sun and Moon, in my opinion. So hopefully they treat him better in this series. But anywho, Team Rocket are here, and Officer Jenny pointed out that they were causing mischief, or they were wanted criminals, kind of like a reminiscent scene to the second episode of the original series. But anywho, they are here to kidnap or take the Ivysaur, and that's when Ash jumps in, and they actually have a updated motto here, and I actually like this motto more than the Sun and Moon motto, so that's one plus I can give the Team Rocket here. But I have a big problem with this scene, because it looks like the secret weapon they get from a Pelipper in the sky is basically a machine that has different Pokemon in it that they can use, and they end up pulling out a Gyarados and a Tyranitar, which on one hand is pretty cool to see Team Rocket with powerful Pokemon like this. That is really cool to see, but at the same time I have a problem with this, because the thing about Team Rocket that's appealing is that, you know, even though they're criminals, they bond with the Pokemon that they catch in each region. And it's always like one of the best things to see each region. And it was really good in Sun and Moon, for example, with Miraidon and Mimikyu. So to see them basically get what is essentially rental Pokemon each time they face off against Ash, I'm really not sure how I feel about it right now. I guess we'll see what happens as the series goes on. So I hope this isn't a regression for Team Rocket. I'm not going to fully judge Team Rocket yet, but I'm kind of mixed on them in this episode. But Ash kind of struggles a little bit against Team Rocket, but with the help of the Ivysaur, he's able to defeat Tyranitar and Gyarados and sends Team Rocket blasting off. And that's when the Ivysaur all evolve, and basically Go was able to record all of this, and they gave it to the professor. And that's pretty much the end of the episode. So, overall, I think this episode was an okay episode. It's not a bad episode by any means, but it's still not that great of an episode. I think next week's episode is probably going to be a lot better, judging by what we're already seeing in the preview for it. But yeah, this episode was more so about establishing Ash and Go's relationship, and by the end of it, you know, they learned to work together and they got to know each other a little bit better, so they aren't, you know, fighting as much as they were before, so that's one good thing. It's just that this episode kind of felt like kind of fillerish. So, in addition to that, Team Rocket was kind of misused here, so hopefully in the future they're treated better. But anyways, I'm going to give this episode a 6 out of 10. So guys out there, what'd you think of this episode? Did you like it? Did you hate it? I'd like to hear your comments and thoughts in the comment section down below, and I will talk to you all later. Have a good day, everyone, and be sure to like and subscribe.